In today's video, I'm going to walk you through setting up and configuring a local IIS server on Windows for your ASP.NET web projects, perfect for development and testing. Hi everyone, welcome to Coding with Bully, where I'm sharing my journey learning about C# and the .NET stack to build some cool web apps and even some mobile apps too. Whether you're just starting or curious about coding, I hope you find this video helpful. Alright, let's jump right in. Let's talk about why use IIS for testing projects locally real quick. Alright, so why bother setting up IIS for local testing instead of just running your project directly in Visual Studio using IIS Express, right? You know, in my past experience, one of the tools I had to set up for web deployment as a software engineer was local IIS on my work laptop. So it's a pretty big deal in real-world projects, and here's why. Number one, it works just like a real server. IIS is what a lot of websites use in production, so testing your project on IIS locally gives you a solid idea of how things will behave once it's live. The next reason is to catch weird bugs early. Sometimes things run just fine on IIS Express, right? But when you deploy them to a real server, stuff just breaks. And just trust me, in my past experience, some developers won't admit the quick hacks they wrote just end up causing things to crash later on. Then we're left with a ton of bugs to squash. So setting up IIS locally helps you catch those issues early and avoid those firefights before they even happen. And the next reason is to test HTTPS and security settings. You need to see how your site works with HTTPS or certain login settings. If your answer is yes, IIS lets you try those things out exactly as you would on a production server. And the next reason is that you could check configuration safely. It's because you could mess around with things like web.config settings, caching, or file permissions on IIS without worrying about breaking a live site. And the next important reason is that getting real performance feedback. IIS gives you a better sense of how your site will perform under real conditions, so you're not caught off guard by slow speeds or crashes. Plus, the next reason is that it works great with Visual Studio. It's because you can publish your web app straight from Visual Studio to IIS. It makes testing changes quick and easy. And the next reason is to simulate multiple websites. If you need to host more than one site on the same server, you could try that out on IIS with different ports or domains. Another important reason is that you could catch network issues early. It's always great for fighting firewall or port problems before you go live. That way, you're not scrambling at the last minute. And the last reason is that to test with your team. When working with a team, IIS can act like a mini staging server so everyone can check the site before it goes public. Alright, if I missed any big reasons for using a local IIS server, drop them in the comments below. So this setup is a game changer, especially if you're aiming to run real-world projects smoothly. Knowing your site will behave exactly as expected before launch, that's the kind of peace of mind you want. Alright, let me walk you through the local IIS server setup. First things first, let's double check if you've got the .NET Core hosting bundle installed or .NET Core 5 or newer. If you're watching this, I am assuming you already have Visual Studio on your work machine. Now, if you remember installing the .NET Core hosting bundle, you could go ahead and skip this step. But if not, let's head over to Microsoft's site to download the .NET Core hosting bundle. Click the download link here. Once you got the file on your local computer, just click the icon here to start installing. Click the install button. It shouldn't take that long. The next feature to double check is development time IIS support in Visual Studio. Let's open the Visual Studio installer. If Visual Studio is already installed, you'll see a modify button, so go ahead and click that. Now, look at the installation details panel on the right. Expand the triangle arrow next to ASP.NET and web development. Then scroll down a little bit to find the development time IIS support option. If it's already installed, this box will be checked. If not, check the box and choose an installation option based on your internet speed at the bottom of the window. Then click Modify. With a good internet connection, this should only take a few minutes. Just a quick note before we move on. We generally need both features for a smooth local IIS server setup, especially if we're deploying .NET Core applications. Here's why. The .NET Core hosting bundle, this is essential because it includes the ASP.NET Core module, which lets IIS handle .NET Core applications. Without this bundle, IIS won't know how to serve your .NET Core app, and you'll likely run into issues like HTTP 500 errors. And the second one is development time IIS support. This can be installed via Visual Studio. While technically optional, it's highly recommended to install this feature because it integrates IIS with Visual Studio for local development, managing things like application pools and authentication paths automatically. Without it, you might encounter authentication and path issues because Visual Studio won't be fully configured to interact with IIS. Alright, let's move on to the next step. We need to enable the IIS and ASP.NET features on Windows. IIS stands for Internet Information Services. Let's open up the control panel, click Programs, click Turn Windows Features on or off. Scroll down a little bit to find Internet Information Services, then click the plus button to expand and see what's available. Make sure to check the box next to Internet Information Services. I am also selecting FTP server or File Transfer Protocol server since I plan to use it in the future. But if you're a beginner, you don't need to worry about that option just yet. Click the plus sign next to Web Management Tools to see the additional options. Make sure the IIS Management Console feature is checked here. That's all we need to focus on for now. Next, click the plus sign next to Worldwide Web Services to see more options. Then expand the first option, Application Development Features. Select ASP.NET 4.8 and the other relevant features will be selected automatically. That's all we need to choose. Finally, just click OK. Once the changes are complete, click Close to exit the Windows Features window. Next, restart your computer and come back to this tutorial if needed. If you run into any issues, let me know in the comments below. Alright, welcome back. Now it's time to put everything to the test. Let's build a simple web app to try out IIS Manager. Let's open Visual Studio. I like to run mine as an administrator. That's what I was taught to do during my software engineering career. Running as administrator can help prevent permission issues with certain files or services. Even though you don't have to worry about it for this simple test, it's a good practice to start with. Next, click Create a New Project in Visual Studio. Scroll down to find ASP.NET Core Web App Model View Controller and select it. Then click Next. Here, you could change or enter your project name and choose where you want to store your project files. You can ignore the solution name field for now. Click Next for the framework. Leave the default selection as it is, and then click Create. Here's our simple web app. Let's find the homepage file so we can make some changes and see it in action. In this file structure, the homepage is called index.chhtml and you'll find it under Views, Home. Let's click on the file to open it. This is the index or homepage file. Let's make a few quick changes. We'll just edit the content inside the HTML tags like the H1 or the header and the P tags for adding a paragraph to the front end. I assume you know some HTML, but if not, don't worry, just follow along. Once you're done, click the single floppy disk icon at the top to save just this file, or press Ctrl and S if you're on Windows. I am assuming you're using Windows as it offers the best compatibility for developing this kind of software, even though Visual Studio Code is available for Mac. Alright, next, click the green play button off the top of this window to compile and launch the web app. You'll notice it's running over regular HTTP without the S, and there you have it, a web app up and running. As you could see in the URL, there's a port number added after localhost. That's because we're using IIS Express, which comes bundled with Visual Studio. Next, let's create a published profile. Right-click on the project name in the left panel, select Publish, then choose Folder. We're going to publish the application to a local folder. Click Next and select a target or destination for the release files that Visual Studio will generate. Quick note, it's a good practice to keep your source code directory separate from your published directory. This keeps deployment cleaner and helps with version control. I'll dive deeper into this in my next video. Once that's done, click Finish. You'll see that a published profile has been created. Click Close to exit the window. Next, click the purple Publish button to publish to the destination folder. The web app files have been successfully published to the destination folder. Let's go check the actual folder to confirm the files are there. And here they are. Now let's move on to the next step, which is deploying the web app to the local IIS server. But first, we need to create a dedicated application pool for our ASP.NET app in IIS Manager. So open IIS Manager as an administrator. Running as administrator ensures you have the permissions needed to make configuration changes. Right-click on Application Pools in the left panel and select Add Application Pool. Next, select the latest version of the .NET CLR. And don't forget to enter a name for your app pool. Usually we use the website name with app pool added at the end. Leave the other settings as they are, then click OK. Just a quick note, in many cases, people skip installing the important features I mentioned earlier in this tutorial, which can lead to file path access authorization errors. As a workaround, some people end up changing the identity in the app pool to local system or another option to fix the error. But in my case, I don't need to adjust the identity of my app pool since I installed those features from the start. Alright, everything is set. Let's add the web app in IIS Manager to deploy it. Right-click Default Website under Sites in the left panel and select Add Application. Port 80 is for HTTP only. Enter your website name in the alias field. Then choose our dedicated application pool by clicking the Select button. Next, click the three dots to choose the physical path. This should be the destination folder where we published our profile files. Before clicking OK to finish the setup, you could also click Test Settings to make sure there are no errors. Next, right-click the default website on the left panel to select Refresh. Click on the web app on the left panel next, then click the Browse 80 HTTP link on the right panel to launch the web app in your default browser. Switch back to your browser to see the website. Here it is. As you could see, the name of the website is added right after the localhost path, unlike the IIS Express, which has the numbers only. If you found this helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more coding tutorials. You have a fantastic day wherever you are. I'll see you in my next video. Bye now.